welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm quite happy to be here.
And it's an honor to have you on the show. And Happy New Year, by the way.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, and a belated Christmas wish as well.
Thank you. Likewise. So, how are things with you? How has the new
Things
year
are
been?
good. I got back to Colombo a few days ago.
Okay.
So, things have been exciting. We were covered in the Sunday Times yesterday, which was great for us. We really got a lot of encouragement from them, and many people have seen that article and they've actually come forward to collaborate with us. So
That's
when you
really
see
nice.
results like that, yeah, it always kind of, it really puts everything into perspective that, okay, we are on the right path. Because that's something you always think about when you do something like this.
Yes, I agree. So tell me a little bit about what you're working on right now.
Yeah. So what I'm doing right now is we founded this institute called the Vattrapalai International Institute of Arts and Film. That's set in the village of Vattrapalai in Mullatheva, that's in northern Sri Lanka. And what we do is we act as a hub for artists from around the country to learn about the arts, to bring their vision to life, to express themselves. So in some cases, what happens is they come to us with an idea and we help them flesh it out. Sometimes, in most cases, we also fund them to get it made, and it's a very fluid process that we follow. Right, I try to take each student or each student team on an individual basis. We have a chat with them separately. We have Zoom sessions with them where we advise them on what the best way to proceed forward will be. And so we just started it because of COVID, because of lockdown. It's very important to us that the artists remain safe.
True.
Sometimes it's very easy when you've been deprived of opportunity all your life. Suddenly, when somebody comes with this kind of opportunity, it's also very easy for them to leap into it very enthusiastically. But we need to make sure that they are safe while they do it. So, for example, we have people who want to do street dramas. We actually have students who are writing and practicing their own street dramas. Now, up to them, they would go out and do it. Right? Yeah. Up to them, they would still find some place where they could go do it. And to them, they are being safe to an extent. But then street drama is all about involvement. Street drama is all about actually going to the space where that drama is required and having people gather around. Street drama is more about the reaction than about the drama itself. So in cases like that, we've asked them to, just hold on a little. There's time, let's do it properly. We could also, once lockdown and all those things are removed, we are planning a festival, which I'll get to later. So we could all have all these dramas also at that festival where everyone who comes there could, interact with it, just see what their take on it is, basically.
True, I get it. When did you really start this? Like, when did you start your project?
Sorry, late July is when we launched the institute. So we had something. We had a small event, very soft event where we just had students from different parts of the country. They wanted to come in and express solidarity for this new initiative that we are starting. Right. So they had already been working for another NGO who are the ones who brought me into the picture. They're called the Social Architects, and they've been doing really, really fantastic work at the grassroots level. So they had already identified lots of young kids. When I say young kids, they're anywhere from 16 to like 22, 23. Right?
All right.
So kids who wanted to make movies, who wanted to make street dramas, something that's engaging and interactive. So they had all these people. So they kind of, initially they brought me in just to train those kids. And then that turned into, that just ballooned because we saw the demand for it. We saw how many of these youngsters from grassroots communities, really from all over the country. I'm not even talking about from one particular place. This was a recurring theme. Whenever we went to the different districts as part of the social architects work, that these young girls and young guys, they were looking forward to getting some kind of guidance like this. They were looking forward for someone in some cases to just riff with. Just kind of have a chat about these things, bring a new perspective into it. So then we decided, okay, you know what? It's probably best to start an institute of our own where we could then empower all these young people. We could have Zoom sessions with them. Now we have a space where they can come in, they can collaborate with artists from around the country. So it's really cool because it's very young, and we've done what we could under the lockdown restrictions. So the real fun is just about to start, when all of them can really start traveling openly and exhibit in public spaces. That's when the real work and the real fun starts.
I understand. So where is your building located? Where your school?
It's located in Mullathievu, right?
Okay.
It's in a village called Vattrapalai. Vattrapalai is actually where the war ended, right?
All right.
So it's and it's also got a very rich cultural past to it. So it just made a lot of sense for us to start the institute there, to symbolize the birth of a new industry, a pan Sri Lankan industry, something that we are all a part of, something that we are all a part of, something that we can create and then eventually project to the world as this is what we can do. That's also a big focus of mine. It's not just building up these artists to the point where, okay, now they've made something, they've showed it to someone, now what? We want them to become fully professional artists. That means they need to think, they need to know about what's happening around them, they need to know about what's happening in the world, they need to be able to communicate with both a marketplace and an audience base around the world. There's one thing I learned from the Indian industry is that in India, you can make something just for the Indian audience, and that would be enough. You can be millionaires and billionaires just doing that, because that's a world of its own. Whereas for a country like Sri Lanka, say for countries like Sri Lanka or Iran, for us to have a really fledgling industry, we need to have fans outside as well. We need to have movie audiences and art audiences from around the world who are looking forward to the next Sri Lankan film or the next Sri Lankan piece of work.
Well, yeah.
And so that's I guess that's where I would sort of segue into my experiences in India, because what happened is because I was born in India, right? So when I grew up there, I went to university in Malaysia, I worked in Singapore for a bit, and then I came back to India. And what happened is, in India, because the film industry is so huge, you get to learn so much just from being a small part of it. And when you're a small part of it, if you show interest in other things, it's very easy for you to grow. There's always something that needs to be done in the Indian film industry. There's always a job. There'll always be some kind of a need, that has to be filled. So it was a really great learning experience for me. I eventually ended up, I was the general manager for a lot of big productions. So kind of we are the behind the scenes production team, like many of my team members, they're not guys who will probably be heard of or be in interviews or be celebrities, but they are vital to getting the job done. And I mean, and more than anything, people like me, it wasn't even for the fame or the glamour of being part of the movie industry, even though that was very enjoyable. One of the things that I learned that I'm trying to bring here now is the camaraderie that happens on a film set. Right? It's a very, very different kind of camaraderie that I can't really explain. It's like being part of a sports team, but at the same time, it's also like being part of a family, of a business team. There are many different aspects. I mean, this, right?
I do.
People who basically make a movie together, you can sometimes spend years apart, and then you can meet again, and it'll click like that because you have all these common stories, all the shenanigans that you pulled. When I explain it to the students, what I tell them is, on a movie set, what's happening is, you may not realize it, but all of you are working together to pull off one large magic trick. That's what you're doing. That's what a movie is. That's what cinema is. It's one elaborate magic trick where you could know who the actors are, you could know what the story is, you could see the twist coming, but still a really good movie will at least momentarily suck you in. For that one moment, forget that you're watching a movie and you get drawn into it. You may shake out of it, depending on how much of a jaded audience member you are. You may kind of shake out of the emotion quickly, but really good movies can grab you like that. And that's a magic trick. That's exactly what a magic trick is. So when you're involved in kind of all getting together and working on something like that, you develop bonds. You know, you want to know more about each other. You want to know more about, especially in a place like India, there's a lot of cross-cultural working, right? In the in the movies that I worked in, I got to work. I was living in Chennai, and the company that I worked for was based there. But I got to collaborate teams from Mumbai, from Punjab, from Delhi, from Kerala, and in some cases from abroad as well, from Texas, from California, from Austria. Right?
Okay.
You got to work with all these people, and in a film set, you reveal certain things about yourself and your perspectives and your cultures and all that, which feeds into that collaboration. You know, you almost kind of feel you feel obligated, not obligated, it's not the right word, but you feel very attracted to the people that you work with. And I think that will go a long way. If I get a lot of young people from Sri Lanka to collaborate, I think we're going to see like lots of new ideas and new styles emerge.
All right. So what other courses you offer at your school, and what kind of facilities do you have? Where does your lecturers come from? Just a basic idea for us. Yeah.
Okay. The courses that we provide are tailored to every individual student. Okay. For example, literally, we had during a meeting about something else, a couple of students walk to me and say, we want to learn about animation. And now I'm teaching them how to do animation on their phones. And they're going to make little projects with that. Right.
Okay.
Another few students basically came and told us, there's a particular kind of software that we use. We don't know how to use DaVinci because we want to use DaVinci. So they wanted a workshop on editing softwares, right? So what we did, called a friend of ours who's a friend of the institute who works in Mumbai right now. We got him over on a Zoom call. We gathered about 20, 30 of these students. Some of them came to the institute, and we have students from, Matara, Polonnaruwa, Hatton, Nuwara, all these places. They joined in on Zoom. And we basically had a workshop on it. And then what happens is when they kind of get some idea of what to do, then on an individual basis, they send us in their questions. We send them the answers, maybe an individual Zoom with the editor. So we have I would say it's a personally tailored learning program that we have.
Oh, that's interesting.
In some cases, students have just come to us saying, "Hey, man, we know everything already. We just don't have the resources. We need you to back us with the resources." These guys in Mullaitivu, they came to me and they said they want to make bonsai trees, and they have made bonsai trees. Right? I never thought, Ray, that in the middle of nowhere, these guys would come to me and say that they make bonsai trees. Right? And they've learned it from just watching. They've learned it from just watching Japanese YouTube videos.
Wow,
which they don't understand. They've just kind of visually seen it and they've duplicated it. And they've come up with kind of their own ways of, potting it and doing different kinds of things.
That's really interesting.
There's something that came to me. So now I'm kind of, the institute is backing them with sort of, the seeds, the pots. We figured, okay, now we can go to somebody, another artisan who makes pots. And maybe we can get these guys to collaborate together. Could you have some kind of a Sri Lankan themed pot on which a Sri Lankan themed bonsai grows? Who knows? So that's that kind of, we're putting them in touch. We're letting them collaborate. Let's see what they come up with, and then we'll fine tune it.
Okay. All right.
So that's what, because I have students all over the country, I really haven't kind of gone crazy in just loading the institute with equipment. Right.
Okay.
Instead of that, what we try to do is we fund them to kind of go to a studio wherever they are and get it edited. Because set up a great editing studio in Mullaitivu right now. Right. A student who has to come all the way from Matara just to edit it, that wouldn't be fair to that team.
Oh,
right.
I get it.
So instead of that, what we do is right now we will have a building. So we are kind of we are setting up our own building, which will be state of the art. Right. But hopefully, while that building is being built, our student base also, kind of builds. Then that way I can bring 50 filmmakers. If I have 50 filmmakers from Mathura, that makes sense for me to just bring them all in a bus and they can kind of edit and do lots of things.
That would make sense.
But right now, we are just going with a very organic approach. The need comes from them. Right? The need has to always come from them. That's what I believe in. Because I could go there with all my fancy ideas of, okay, I need a VFX lab here, I need a dance studio there, I want a music recording room here. Hey, what if they don't want? What if they come to me and say, hey, idiot, we need to learn how to use computers first before we need it. How about you organize some kind of like a basic computer class for us? So I want that to come from them now. We'll probably take some time to ascertain that while we are building the structure, while we're building the building, right? And then based on needs, I'll also know to then what to put into that building. Now some have expressed an interest in animation. So now obviously I will kind of plan in a VFX store and an animation store, because what we are trying to do, Ray, is we're also trying to identify opportunities for these guys to economically prosper. Right? That's really, really important. It's not,
That's
while
the
I
most
also
important
believe
thing.
in art for art's sake, I also believe in that, right? There's no doubt in that. But at the same time, it's impractical. It's absolutely impractical to think that you can make art flourish in a country or even in a small area without economic benefits being then relayed to the artist. That's impractical, especially in a country like ours. Especially in a country like ours, where we already have this generational thing where students are pushed towards things like science and those other kind of things, because they either bring a certain kind of prestige or it brings financial independence. It brings more than independence, it brings some kind of financial security, right? So very, very talented people have kind of gone towards that side because the arts field has no financial security. And why does it have no financial security? Because there's no industry. There's no industry to these young girls and guys to actually say, you know what, I am going to create something. I am going to be a part of something, So that won't happen overnight. It won't just happen just with, one person's efforts, one institute's efforts. And many people have been attempting this for a while, right? This is by no means some original idea that I've had. People have been doing it and people have been doing a great job at it. It's just that not enough people. That's the issue, right?
True.
Not enough people are doing it because the carrot that we've dangled in front of them maybe hasn't been big enough. So now we are working on making that carrot as big as possible.
What are your specialties? What background do you come from? You're a filmmaker yourself, and
Yes.
what's your background in filmmaking?
Right. So my background in filmmaking, I'll split it into two branches, right? So on one hand, I've made kind of short films, corporate films, documentaries, all that for a really long time, since I was about 17, since I was in college, basically. Right.
Okay.
And I used to help out with lots of different animations. So I have a pretty good idea of what it takes to make something from scratch. Right. And when I transitioned to big movies, my scope, my specialty was quote unquote production. So whatever is required to produce something, right? A director could come, okay, you know what, tomorrow I want to film a song in a blue building, let's just say. Right? So it would be my job and my team's job to work with the director and his team to now find the building, find the paint, find people to paint it, get it painted the right way, work with the art director, get the materials made. So essentially the bare bones of a movie that you don't kind of really don't learn it unless you do it. There are no books about it. There are no tutorials on that. You can learn all the other things, right? There are even the production courses in film schools. What they basically do is they give you a camera and they say, go produce a movie. So it's hands-on experience. So what happens is, because I've had hands-on experience with making a movie on my phone, we were back then, I'm from the generation where you had to kind of borrow a friend's digital camera, one of those Cybershot cameras, and go to the video mode and make it. It wasn't as easy as it is now. So I'm kind of from that generation where we really had to make it from scratch. We really kind of had to put our resources together, and the storytelling had to be what won out, right? I'm not saying that I became a very great storyteller or anything like that, but it forces you to tell better stories, or it forces you to tell the story better when you're tight for resources, when you don't have resources. So then when I then went on to work on some of the biggest budget movies in Indian cinema, that translated really well, because now I had the education on how to make really large projects as well, on what all goes into making really, really large projects, the similarities between small projects and large projects, what kind of skills you to hone in small projects that will later help you if you transition to a larger project.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
those are the kind of that aren't easy to put down in paper in a syllabus. That only comes with when our students are making a film. I have to be there with them.
Mm-hmm.
We have other sort of consultants who kind of consult with us, and they come be there with them. Now because of COVID, unfortunately a lot of them can't come, so we have to
Mm-hmm.
kind of film it and show them by Zoom and do all those kind of things. But because I'm around, I can kind of, so I'm there for the production of the movies.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
really interfere. But when I see some kind of mistake or something that they could have done better, I immediately step in and inform them.
All
So
right.
I
Okay.
function as like an alarm system for them. But at the
All right.
same time, it has to come from them, right? I
Okay.
can't make the movie better. I can't make it worse. I can only
Mm-hmm.
keep it from going under a certain level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whether it shoots up beyond that level or not is entirely up to the individual creator and the teams that they're involved in.
All right.
At least that's how it's been so far. I don't know if maybe down the future, the consultants or myself, maybe we'll have to take on a stronger role or just kind of more of a backseat. It's also something, the collaboration is new to me as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I come from a background where you're on like a big movie set. There are like experts who've done it for many, many years. And
Mm-hmm.
I was always, almost until the end of my film career, I was still very much in learning mode, because there were
Mm-hmm.
just so many new things. So transitioning that into teaching mode there's a lot of give and take with the students. Some students are more receptive, some
Mm-hmm.
students are less receptive. But at the same time, both movies are equally important to me. So me and my team also have to kind of, we have to know the filmmaker, we have to know what their temperament is and how they like to work, and we kind of teach them. It's not just the filmmaking, right? We teach them things like how to write contracts for film, because that's
Very
something that's very
important.
important that they
Yes.
don't, yeah, very
Mm.
important that they don't get taught, right? They don't get taught, and
Not.
then
Mm-hmm.
ultimately they can get ripped off by a production company or a festival or something like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
because these guys can read the fine print, they just don't know about the fine print. So we've
Mm-hmm.
also educated them on kind of the legal side of that, on
Okay.
how to just fix these tiny mistakes. In fact, I got them all together, physically together with me a few months ago, and I
Mm-hmm.
taught them how to storyboard, because none of
All
them
right.
storyboarded what they did.
Okay.
You know, they were
Mm-hmm.
all like, no, the movie's in my head. Don't worry about
Mm-hmm.
it. I got this. I said, no, we
Mm-hmm.
don't. I'm not proceeding with anything. And the social architects were a huge help with me. They really backed this policy as well. We said we
Mm-hmm.
are not proceeding with anything until we see the storyboards for your movies. And we
Mm-hmm.
kind of had them all together. And I think 2 nights we just basically made them do the storyboards and all that. And on the final day, they would sit with me individually,
Mm-hmm.
and they would kind of explain the storyboard to me. And so I will then have an idea of whether the filmmaker has any visual inclination towards the script, or whether they are just going to film it like a stage play.
Mm-hmm.
It's I mean, most of them did come up with things that very pleasantly surprised me.
All
So
right.
it was definitely a, but then after they make the movie, they all come to me and they say, Nish, you, like, we were really saved by that storyboard. Like the storyboard, which because of the storyboard that we were able to get it done this easily.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're
Yep.
making YouTube videos, you don't need to storyboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of them have been making YouTube videos, and that's fine. And that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's a perfectly kind of good way. But when you think of something as a film festival movie, I'm not saying there should be a difference between the two, right? I've
Mm-hmm.
seen YouTube videos that are better than quote unquote film festival movies, and vice versa. But
Yeah.
when you tell these guys that it's a film festival movie, immediately the seriousness around it kind of goes up. They,
Mm-hmm.
they, they feel more important, right? They kind of feel like, okay, somebody's trusting me with this project. Let me up my game.
Mm-hmm.
Let me kind of bring my A game to this. So those are kind of tricks that we've been learning also, just to get them to wake up a little more.
The future of cinema, right? I'll just stick to cinema for now.
Sure.
What do you think would happen to big blockbusters that are released in theaters, cinemas?
Mm-hmm.
We have one problem with the pandemic. We've realized that at least 80% of the world's population consume their content through a mobile device. So
Yes.
the way of making movies have changed. So how do you see the future? The next 5 years, maybe?
What I see when we talk about the big budget movies, right? I'm guessing when you say blockbusters, that's what you mean, right? So, I mean, I actually have a different kind of take on it, right? Because many people are predicting the demise of big blockbuster cinema, right? What I'm saying, it's going to get smaller, right? But I think a new kind of blockbuster cinema is going to emerge, okay, where people just go for something as a spectacle. I think there is still some kind of innate human need to go and watch a spectacle with a group of people. I don't know that, of course, the way we consume stories have completely changed. So those of us who want want to stick to good stories will now stick to, consuming it through their television or computers, or with people like me through my, through my phone. Right. But that's a good cinema, good art, good stories, all those things. Right. And of course, there's a lot of room for big budget stuff there as well. Like, like Game of Thrones or The Witcher, the Mandalorian, you can name it, right? Name it.
True.
There's lots of stuff that's being, and I think it's just as enjoyable when I see it on my phone. Right. I am just as drawn. But at the same time, I think there is some kind of magic of sitting in a movie hall, right? And basically, Star Wars, the text basically scrolls up and everyone in the theater goes nuts, right? Or you're there to watch a Marvel movie and basically the Marvel logo, the flipping of the comic books basically starts, and everyone in the cinema hall just erupts. I think there's definitely something to that will never go away. It'll find some kind of new form. I think in countries like India, economics is so tied up with the film industry, right? So even though it's the same case in Hollywood as well. It's absolutely the same case in Hollywood, where Hollywood and big budget movies will not go down without a fight.
True.
They just will go down without a fight. They'll try to, if they're forced to innovate, they will innovate. Like, for example, they will probably have to up their 3D game. They'll probably have to up their 4D game. They'll have to start giving you reasons to go to the theater. It can no longer just be about seeing a good movie on a screen, because now I can do that just kind of lying on my couch. So it has to be experiences that they provide. So I think spectacle/experiential movies will probably be the next big industry. Whereas what we used to quote unquote, the independent cinema in 90s and 80s and all that, that will be combined with high budget cinema. And hopefully we'll on the small screen. So hopefully on the small screen, we'll get great stories with great production values that are very engaging, that we can keep watching, that we have a lot of choice in. And the big movies, I think, will be relegated to experiential cinema, things that can only be duplicated on a big screen.
So what
do you think? Because I'm very interested in what other people think about this as well. What's your opinion on this?
I agree with you to an extent when it comes to cinemas will not go away forever. It will remain in some form. It has to. I'm with that. But I am noticing newer generations getting used to consume their content through little devices, mostly mobile phones, and some use iPads and tablets and stuff. But that seems like the major platform right now.
It is, yeah.
Like, for example, I have 2 kids and they've already started recording videos with their iPads, and they edit them in their iPad and it's ready to go.
Yeah.
So we're entering a generation where a filmmaker can shoot, edit, distribute film with one device. Yeah. I'm not talking about the quality and all that, right? I'm just talking about the storytelling aspect. So it's very interesting to see what will happen. Even me, myself, I spend a lot of times watching short, and also attention span. What do you think of attention span? People's attention span has reduced.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, what attention span? That would probably be my response. Because look, I don't want to kind of take credit away from people, because there are, for example, long form podcasts like this, long form podcasts like Joe Rogan, for example. I think the fact that one of the most listened to podcasts in the world is a long form podcast means there are enough people who are kind of rallying against this idea that everyone has a short attention span, right? But at the same time, I myself, if I see a video that's shorter than 2 minutes, I will almost always watch it. And if I see a video that's longer than say 14, 15 minutes, I will almost always skip it. Right. So on a personal level, I've noticed that shift in myself. Unless I really, and I'm the kind of guy who I used to watch like 2.5 hour experimental cinema, movies where nothing would happen for 2.5 hours, and I'd just be hypnotized by it. And now a video that's over 15 minutes is making me groan. So on that side, it's really hard to argue that just the average attention span has come down, right? But I think the point I was making earlier about the Joe Rogan stuff and all that is that if your content is good enough, there still seems to be a path to break out of that attention span barrier. But you have to be really, really good. Like for somebody who's up and coming, who's making short films, like I would definitely advise a blossoming artist to make lots and lots of short films rather than wait to create that one long feature film, right? That one long feature would be your dream, but I think people need to work on creating short content now, because that's what other people will watch. I think one good thing about the short attention span of the audience is that the creators have now been forced to explore new things, right? When you have to create a new 5-minute video every day, right? Because that's the only way to grow your YouTube channel, something like a little featurette channel or something like that. You can't show the same thing over and over. Whereas earlier you might have gotten away with making maybe 1 hour documentary or 1.5 documentary on one topic, and you release maybe one documentary a year. Whereas now you're going to have to find new topic every day. Okay, only 3-4 minutes, but still every day. So I think the short form format also has its own advantages that need to be explored, that because it's still a very, very young format. Even the short films have been around for, almost a century now. I mean, the very earliest films were short films, right? So even though they've been around for long, I don't know if the potential of short films have really been tapped into, because it's only now with YouTube that short films are coalescing into an industry. For the fact that most people in the world, I bet you today, as we speak today, if you go look at the YouTube numbers or any visual podium numbers, more people in the world today have consumed short films than they've consumed feature films. Do you agree with me?
I agree with you. Yes.
Right? But still, short films are not as big an industry or as spoken of as the feature film format.
That's what I was going to ask you. But is there an industry for short films? We understand that it's quite popular, but when it comes to the industry, I don't see an industry in short films.
There is no industry because there are no barriers to entry, right? It's for exactly the reason that you said, because anybody can now pick up a phone and make a short film, and now you're part of the short film world. There are no industry, but I think that industry will take a lot of time to form. It'll be kind of a circle of artists who kind of, my only concern is that the short film industry will get hijacked by the, advertising industry or the corporate industry or the, the political industry, because that's where a lot of the short films, that's where the money is right now. If you're a short film maker, right, you don't really make there may be exceptions, right, who are very wealthy, but on average, short filmmakers don't make as much money from their short films unless they then sell it for kind of agenda. So there are companies, for example, who buy short films, right, and they have these platforms where there are short films that are bought for money and you can support, but that's still very much, those are apps and those are companies that people support, the people who want to support the filmmakers, right? Whereas most people would just say, hey, why would I pay for short films? I can watch short films for free on YouTube.
True. Yes.
That's basically the logic behind it. So I would really I would say that short films will eventually organically turn into an industry of its own, or there'll be many, many different industries. And see, we're seeing it happen in television as well. Right now, at one point, I remember, Ray, and I'm sure you remember as well, when we were teenagers or when we were growing up, there would be 1, 2, 3 great TV shows, and everybody would watch them.
True.
right? Whoever really wanted to see something great would watch it, right? Now there are so many great
Oh
TV
my God, I'm
shows.
lost.
My
Yeah.
backlog of shows alone is so long, right? There are people that I meet who are immersed in that kind of pop culture, who have seen 5, 6 shows, and they live by those shows religiously, and I haven't even seen one of them,
Me too.
right? And
Yeah.
the group people with another 5, 5, 6, 7, 8 shows that they so as even though the word geek and geekdom is basically used very derogatorily in certain areas, kind of as the geek value of like TV shows and all those things as they rise, the idea of subcultures then become a thing. So now there are subcultures about around Star Wars, and if the Star Wars lore just keeps putting out enough animated shows and enough TV shows to keep those people satisfied, in most cases that's all they'll watch, right?
True.
Or they
Yep.
may be Marvel fans, or they may be anime fans or manga fans or something like that, like no, just in terms of the fragmented way we watch shows now, where now there are so many great TV shows that nobody gets to watch. There's so much good content out there. How do
That's
you
what
deal with it?
I can't deal with it. It's so much. On Netflix, I've just listed them. They're on my list, but I hardly get a chance to watch. And another problem I have is I spend more time deciding what to watch than actually trying to get a movie. Because, I don't know, maybe because I'm a movie maker, when I see the poster or read the synopsis, I can kind of figure out the entire formula of the movie. So that kind of completely kills the excitement of what I want to watch. So picking movies is quite difficult for me, movies and TV shows, because they have very good TV shows now. So the only one I've watched recently is The Mandalorian and Cobra Kai season 3. That's it. I haven't seen anything else.
Again, those are two shows, both of which kind of, they're not riding on nostalgia, right? But they're certainly a part of this new nostalgia machine that was thrust upon us in the early 2000s. But first they did it badly, right? Now they've started doing it well, right? Now Star Wars universe has started churning out stuff that even non-Star Wars fans can enjoy.
Yeah.
You mentioned Mandalorian, you mentioned another show as well just now.
Karate Kid.
Cobra Kai. There you go.
Yes.
For people like me, I didn't even care whether Cobra Kai was good or not. I just needed to see it.
Same
right?
story.
Because because I was so, as a kid, I was so invested in the continuity of those characters. So that's an entire, when cinema and TV shows have been around for long enough, right? We see it first start, we see ideas start to cannibalize themselves. And then fortunately from that, new things emerge. And those new things just end up being in some even better than the original.
True. Where do you, what do you think?
We all have these hard disks. I'm sure we all have these backlogs of, movies and TV shows that we are supposed to watch that we never get into, right?
Yeah, I have a lot.
Do you ever get into this thing where you were talking about the confusion of, picking what to watch? Sometimes I just get so overwhelmed by that choice that I just end up watching something I've already seen, right? The comfort of something that I've already seen, I like just put on a show that I've seen 1,000 times, and I'll just watch that again and have a pretty good time.
True. That same thing happens to me too. I was going to ask you about current filmmakers in Sri Lanka. We don't have to mention names, but what do you think of what we produce at present? Like the standard, the quality. That I'm mostly talking about technical stuff, because we've made pretty good movies in the past, mostly technical achievements.
Yeah, I mean, mostly technical. See, it would really, really depend on the movie, right? Like I've really seen movies on both ends of the spectrum, right? Like I still don't know if the present generation has evolved something called a Sri Lankan style, right? I think that's something. That's very important. I think that's something that young filmmakers need to be very, very aware of, right? That for us to get to a point where we can export our film industry to other countries, there needs to be some kind of unique selling point. It just can't be me, right? If Nishanthan makes and Ray makes a movie, and they could be entirely two different kinds of movies, right? But there just needs to be some similar aura in them where people can immediately identify. When we talk about Korean cinema, right? Now there are so many people who say we watch Korean movies, we watch Iranian movies. They don't really know anything about the culture of Korea or Iran or anything like that before they saw the movies, right?
True.
Something drew them to it. Something drew them to it. In many cases, it's just the reputation of those movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember I have lots of friends who, back in the day when I used to watch Korean movies, they used to be like, "What are you watching?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because at that time, Korean movies weren't really popular. It was only movie
Mm-hmm.
nerds like me who would kind of be watching Korean movies. Then
Mm-hmm.
eventually, as more Korean movies started getting popular, everyone hears, "Hey man, I saw a really good Korean movie the other day.
True.
Hey man, I saw a really good Korean movie the other day." Then you hear this about 4 or 5 movies and they're all Korean, right? Now
True.
you're kind of not so closed off watching Korean movies anymore. So I think we need more of a united effort.
Mm-hmm.
I think what would be great is if filmmakers kind of got together and
Mm-hmm.
we just had more discussions on style. If we had
Mm-hmm.
more discussions on presentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the production values we have right now, they are pretty good given the limitations that we have, but they're still
Mm-hmm.
limited, right? Because there
Mm-hmm.
is only so much that we can have access to. There is
Mm-hmm.
only, I mean, the Indian industry with all its riches and all its infrastructure and all its equipment is still able to only do, they are still within certain confines. You still won't find, for example, an Indian TV show that has the production values of Game of Thrones,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even though there are production companies with the money to do something like that, maybe not
Mm-hmm.
the money to do something as extravagant as the later seasons of Game of Thrones, right?
Mm-hmm.
But certainly the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones, which were the best seasons, could
Mm-hmm.
certainly be replicated by like an Indian company, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't, right? So Sri Lanka has to be, we need to be very careful in how we position our industry. We need to be
Mm-hmm.
very careful in what what is the Sri Lankan industry, right? Do we all
Mm-hmm.
come together? Do we all collaborate? Or is it
Mm-hmm.
just kind of we are kind of split by region? We are split by language.
Mm-hmm.
There's no. I won't say, it would be unfair for me to say that there is no collaboration or anything like that. But whatever
Mm-hmm.
collaboration hasn't been presented to the world.
True.
It may sound like a flight of fancy, but people like me, and I'm sure people like you as well, we want Sri Lankan movies to be nominated for, like, best foreign film or whatever. It
Mm-hmm.
may have nothing to do with how legitimate you think the Oscars are. It may have
Mm-hmm.
nothing, that may be kind of a farce or whatever you call it. But still, the effect that it can have on the life and reputation of a Sri Lankan filmmaker and the
Mm-hmm.
Sri Lankan industry to get a nomination or an award like that is immense.
Yes, it
You know,
is.
all,
Mm-hmm.
all it takes is for 2 or 3 movies to appear on that list consecutive years, right?
Mm-hmm.
2022, one movie, 2023, 2024, all of them are Sri Lankan. Or maybe even 3 in a space of 5, 6 years, let's say, not even
Mm-hmm.
consecutive years. That's really all we need for the industry to kind of shoot up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because then the opportunity becomes clear,
Mm-hmm.
right? One of the biggest problems I have with a lot of, not just the filmmaking teams but the art teams also, is that
Mm-hmm.
they don't have a clear picture of the destination that they're supposed to be in. See, to many of them, right, they have, like
Yep.
I said, they've been deprived of opportunity. They have no resources. Like I say this over and over again, not for anyone to have sympathy or pity on them, but to kind of truly appreciate the effort that it takes for them to get into something like this,
True. True.
you know and
Mm-hmm.
and I think what I'm trying to tell them is, they need a clearer picture of what that destination should be.
Mm-hmm.
You could bolt a cycle to a bicycle to the ground, and you can kind of like keep pedaling. It's not going to get you forward, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
don't if you're looking to move forward, it doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter how good you are. If you don't kind of lay that trajectory for yourself, then that's what we're trying to show them, right? and
Mm-hmm.
i and i and I realize that a lot of this, will sound extremely sort of pretentious and high sort of high level, but it's just the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a lot of these filmmakers, they don't get to have conversations like this.
True.
Sometimes you can also kill them with kindness. Sometimes they can make subpar movies and everyone can kind of clap and cheer for them because they're basically because they are under resourced kind of filmmakers, but then that's not going to enable them to grow. That's not going to enable them to get that bigger stage.
I totally agree. I'm on your side.
That's not what we want at all.
Yep.
Now obviously the knowledge that they are post-conflict filmmakers or whatever, whatever word you want to call them, basically they're poor and they've been deprived of opportunity, right? So for your viewing experience and your consumption experience obviously will be affected by your knowledge of who made it, right? But that shouldn't be the reason that you enjoy it. You should enjoy the art on its own terms. They should make a movie that's enjoyable on its own terms. Once you know that a very poor person or somebody who has had no training or no resources has made this, your appreciation of the movie should go from good to great. It shouldn't go from bad to good, right? That is completely inexcusable. That is not a sustainable way forward.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, so as you can tell, I have very strong views on the subject because these are the things that I argue most often with the communities, right? Sometimes I do have to take a little bit of a harder approach or a softer approach depending on the attitude of the students. In some cases, they've been told all their lives that they can't do it. They've been told all their lives that they'll never be able to do it, and that even if they do it, it'll be horrible. That it'll basically be crap. So to people like that, sometimes you have to shake them and say, just do it, just get it done. We are here for you, but you're not a puppet that I can control with strings and, sort of direct the movie. You'll have to go do it. I can stay and watch and help you, but you'll have to do it because this is not your industry, right? We have not come in here to kind of create an industry. We are here to grow an industry.
Another thing I wanted to ask you was the interest towards locally produced movies in Sri Lanka, right? Not everyone is very enthusiastic towards or not excited to expecting like an upcoming Sri Lankan local produced movie. That's very rare. Even myself, I rarely get excited about something that's coming out that was locally produced. I may get excited if I know the filmmaker or someone who was involved in it. But other than that, a local movie never excites me. Why is this? It's just not storytelling. It's a lot of things involved. But why is this happening? But if you look at India, people worship cinema. They love it. They cannot live without it. You can see people queued up. They appreciate that medium so much, and we are like so near. We're neighbors and we're almost the same. But how come we don't have that over here?
I will let me just kind of throw a question back at you, right?
Okay.
Because then I think I think there is an answer in the question that you asked, right?
Okay.
So in your case, so personally, Ray, as a person, is it because you feel that the content isn't strong enough? Like, what is the reason that you don't? So basically, what you're saying is that the content isn't strong enough to draw you in, right?
Yes, I don't have enough faith. I'm worried about the time I would invest, and I'm worried that I'll get disappointed when I walk out of the cinema, or it's mostly the fear of disappointment.
Right. I don't want to be unkind, right? Because I don't know I'm not saying that I've made great movies or anything like that, right? I can only answer these questions from a completely technical standpoint. Okay. But if a trailer for a movie, let's say there was a movie like City of God, okay, but that's set in the streets of Peta. Obviously not that kind of violence, but some kind of a gritty crime story, okay, that's set in, let's say that's set in Colombo, right? And let's say the trailer is amazing. Nobody is going to care whether it's local or international or whatever it is. If the trailer is amazing, we look forward to it. Right? There's also, I think, a tendency that I'm trying to weed out of a lot of the students that we work with. There's that tendency to kind of clamor saying, oh, support your local artists, okay, even if they're not that great. right? There's like a,
Yep.
and I totally appreciate that, and I do it myself, right? There are certain local authors whose books I may go by. There are certain local movies that I may go to support them, but that's something you do as a person. You have
Mm-hmm.
no right to expect the community to then go do that. The
Mm-hmm.
community should never have any obligation whatsoever to support something just because it's locally made. They should
Mm-hmm.
support something because it's good,
True.
right?
I'm on
And
that.
they
I'm
should
on that.
have
Mm-hmm.
and local filmmakers should know that if, at the same time, local filmmakers should know that if they make good content, the country will support it. See, what happens is sometimes there may be good movies that come out that none of us support.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's also something that we will probably have to look into. I think how much information comes out first about these movies. Do we
Mm-hmm.
have like any kind of tomato system where people can automatically like isolate one standout movie and say, hey, everyone go watch this? Are
Mm-hmm.
there systems for that, or is it
Mm-hmm.
still mostly happening through the Facebook and WhatsApp shares?
Mm-hmm.
These are the problems that the industry will fix, because having an industry means then you'll also have some kind of centralized place where people can go to for reliable news about that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of centralized place where people can vote on the movies and they know which movies are duds and which movies need to be supported.
I
Right
get
now,
you.
I don't know if even if that information structure exists. I mean, does that
It doesn't
exist right now?
exist.
How do you normally
No.
get to know? Right,
Through social media, I'm a
right.
filmmaker, so I have a network of filmmakers. So when something is, I'm talking about the local industry here. So when something is locally produced, someone would end up sharing a link. I end up checking it out, and I'm also like in different groups, so I get to know about locally produced stuff through the groups. But the average person have no clue about these things. They only know about one or two
Yeah,
movies that
yeah,
will
yeah,
come
yeah.
out, and like
Marketing,
it's
marketing and promotion is something that. Sorry, Ray. I interrupted you. Sorry.
no, I agree. That's what I was gonna say. Like we suck at marketing and promoting. So
Yeah, right. That has something that definitely has a huge effect. I think
mm-hmm.
in India, it's not that a film culture it wasn't born out of nowhere, right? It was very carefully created. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that leaves, we can take certain blueprints from how the different industries in India grew their industries, and we can apply them here.
Mm-hmm.
We can. It's just that it's very difficult. We'll have to get everyone to cooperate. Everyone has to be on board. First it has to be. In India, at one point there was an actual need for a film industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
For political discussion, for social discussion, sometimes just as family escapism, right? There was an
Mm-hmm.
actual need for industry. So we need to identify what the need for our industry is. Are we pushing for a film industry because we are filmmakers and we think it would be cool? Or is it an industry that the country can actually benefit from? If
Mm-hmm.
so, how does the country benefit from it? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I don't know how many of us have first kind of have actually contemplated that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many filmmakers, young filmmakers from around the country, and you will get a kick out of this, right? Because I'm sure you know people like this as well. They want to make short films, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't watch short films, right? They'll only watch
Yeah.
short
Yeah.
films that they make and their friends make, and that they don't watch short films. I'm like,
Yeah.
how can you, like, you can't say I'm a poet, but I don't read poetry. You can't say that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the number
Yep.
of people who's up, it's going to get to the point where there are more people making short films than watching short
They're
films.
watching short films. Yeah.
That's a very troubling thing. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I think as filmmakers sometimes, or as artists, we
Mm-hmm.
sometimes need to find ways in which we can convince society that we are important. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just about us telling society that we're important.
Mm-hmm.
The importance of having a film industry, what the film industry can do, what it can do to job opportunities here, what it
Mm-hmm.
can do to cultural exports, what are the
Mm-hmm.
kind of things that we can showcase in our country through the film industry. Where are the selling points to other countries? Now we are a hugely tourism based country, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we don't have a thriving film industry that is showcasing all the locations in our country to other countries is a crime. The fact that
Mm-hmm.
nobody's doing this, it blows my mind.
True. True.
right? We have once in a while, we celebrate great movies like Bridge on the River Kwai, or Temple of Doom, the Indiana Jones movies, the ones who come here and film,
Mm-hmm.
right? But technically we could be doing that all the time. We could
True.
be doing that all the time, and there would be economic and financial synergy in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways to make the industry grow in India. If you look at the different kinds of ways in which the industries came up, the Tamil industry from South India, they were very deeply sort of entwined with politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to grow political parties, they would kind of make movies, and that then led to a fledgling industry, and that then leads to movies of different, even non-political movies, right? But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the interest came in because they needed a vessel for that.
Okay.
Whereas if you go to the Bengali film industry, for example, there it was very much about economic reform, about artistic celebration. They wanted to make movies that could actually be showcased to the rest of the world, but
Mm-hmm.
also with a uniquely Indian flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different industries that found their purpose in India when it became, once they lay the infrastructure. Now in a country, one of the reasons I say that movies also won't die out is because you have 100,000 theaters. What are you going to
Mm-hmm.
do with all? They will find something to do with it. They will
Mm-hmm.
turn it into some kind of an experiential avenue. But as Sri Lankans, we'll have to figure out what our magic is. We'll have to figure out the need that we have uh, for the community to support us, and what we can then bring to the table. You always have to bring something to the table. You can't just tell a community that doesn't have a film industry, what I'm bringing to the table is the film industry. They'll just
Mm-hmm.
say, well, we don't have it anyway. What we need to educate them on the need for this. We need to educate them on the benefits of this. We need to show them examples of what happened to other countries when the film industry started rising. We need to show them
Mm-hmm.
examples of what happened when other countries embraced their film communities or their film industry for things apart from just commercial cinema.
Yep.
Right. Because right now the beneficiaries of commercial cinema are the filmmakers, the theater owners, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. As far as the general public goes, hey, oh, you told me a great story, awesome. I just watched a better story, from a Swedish filmmaker on my phone this morning.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only so much where the quality of the content can help us build an industry. You need to find things, I think, outside of the quality of content as well. Things like economic synergy, things like just in India, going out for a movie is like a rite of passage, right?
Mm-hmm.
After your
Mm-hmm.
exams are over, you get together the first day of holidays, you get together with your parents and you go to a movie. And that's why India has like very ridiculously timed movies.
Mm-hmm.
There are some big names, big stars who will release their movies only during certain festival dates.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I've
that's the
noticed it on
day that
trailers.
schools are off. And yeah, exactly. And I remember sometimes when I was a kid, we would just, as a family, we would go, not even knowing what movie we were going to watch. Sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
would only go there and see which movie we get tickets for. There'd be 6 movies playing. Sometimes our first choice, second choice, third choice, all sold out. We watched even the 4th movie because we're all kind of, we've all gotten into the car and we've all kind of driven to the cinema. We'll watch a movie. We'll go have dinner after this. It was part of that family experience. So those are things that we'll have to highlight. Those are things that we'll have to bring back. Those are things that actually provide value to people outside of the film community. If people from the film community are clamoring for building a film industry, that can easily be misconstrued as just self-interest, as self-preservation. We need to present our industry as something that can benefit even people who are not making movies or even who are not really watching movies. What's your take on that? How do you think? Because you guys have, I'm sure you've put a lot of thought into like the local industry here as well. Because I can tell that it's something that you're pretty passionate about.
When I was a kid, I was
Right.
always disappointed with Sri Lankan movies when I was a kid. I have watched them, I have enjoyed some of them, but I was always sad as a kid, right? Um, why don't our movies look like the ones in Hollywood? Then as time passed, I realized why. It was technology, resources, and all that. I get it. When I started filmmaking, what I wanted to do was I wanted to try and make a Sri Lankan movie that could look like a Hollywood movie, but a Sri Lankan movie.
Right.
Not a Hollywood remake or not anything like that. An original Sri
Right.
Lankan
Right.
movie with a Sri Lankan identity, but with a Hollywood finish.
Right. Local flavor, basically.
Local flavor. It's the same thing you were talking about at the beginning. So I think some of us feel that way about films, and I've been trying to get that for 18 years now, and I'm still not satisfied.
Wow. I mean, I think we have made some strides recently with. I think once zero budget cinema really starts taking off here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying the great movies are going to come from zero budget cinema, but I think zero budget cinema is a great way for us to identify talent that may have slipped through the cracks earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I shudder to think how many young, talented Sri Lankans just lived and died without getting an opportunity
that must
to
have happened a
showcase their work.
lot. Yeah.
I'm sure that happened a lot. Happened a lot. Right? It can't not be the case. So I think we'll have to water those plants. We'll kind of have to see what happens till one of them puts their hands up, and they will. All it takes is, like I said, all it takes is one girl, one guy, one person to put their hand up and say, hey, guess, hello world, right? I am here. And then everybody will clamor to basically follow that person. Everyone will clamor to catch up with that person. But that person is that elusive, the front runner that we are looking for. And hopefully multiple front runners will emerge, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully we have such an abundance of talent that soon we won't know what to do with all the talent in our country.
What kind of support can we expect from a government, not the government or the previous government? It doesn't matter what government it is, but whatever government in power, what can we expect? What kind of support can we expect? Because what I see right now is they don't understand the importance of the film industry, right? Maybe like a fracture of the members of the parliament would actually care about movies. All of them definitely watch movies, but in terms of developing Sri Lankan cinema, I hear a lot of people talking about things, but I've never really seen anything happen. But okay, if we leave the negatives aside and leave the bashing aside, how can we get the governments to get involved and develop the industry here?
That's a great question, right? I have a slightly, I mean, it's an unusual answer, right? But it's something that I've learned not just in India, but also from traveling the world and, just kind of seeing how different film industries work from around the world, because that's what I'm really a student of. That's what I really like exploring and like reading about, is just how different things are made in different countries. And I firmly believe that any government, right, it doesn't matter who it is, once they see the value in something, and this again goes down to what we were talking about earlier, right? Let's say I'm a politician. Okay, let's say I'm a politician who actually wants to help the country. Right? There are many pressing concerns that I need to address, right? And given the way cinema is perceived in our country, people who make movies and people who watched movies, we haven't really given cinema the status that it requires for everyone to pay attention to it. I really don't think so. I'm the kind of person, I think a government's job in a movie should be to, if the locations can be used, we go to them for permission. We kind of sometimes we may need stopped and all those things. But at the same time, I don't know if I'm not a big fan of governments helping industries too much, film industries too much, art industries too much, because then lots of those filmmakers and artists, they become very involved in the agenda of whichever party is in power at that time. Not Sri Lankan, forget Sri Lankan. Anywhere in the world,
it's natural,
when governments start funding, it's natural. See, that's what kings used to do. What did kings do? Kings would a king wouldn't give somebody a pouch of golden coins if that guy writes an insult poem about the king. Right? You have to go to court in front of everyone. You have to extol the virtues of the king. Right? You have to give many names. You have to talk about how great he is, all the sort of the lands he has conquered, all the fruits he has given to his people, and all those things. Only then do you get that bag of money. right?
Mhm.
So this whole kind of when support is received from an outside source, artists will inevitably, especially struggling artists, will inevitably end up kind of leaning that way. Which is why
Mhm.
even with my work, I'm very, very careful not to lead them towards any conclusion. Right?
Mhm.
I'm very, very careful not to push them towards, hey, I need more films, so why don't you make a
Mhm.
movie as well? Hey, you want to make statues? No, no, no. Let's do something that you can put on Instagram. I don't interfere at all.
Mhm.
Right? What they want to do, what they want to speak about is what they will speak about.
Mhm.
So I guess that would be my answer. The answer would be, I think, if when an industry becomes big enough, I think a government will pay attention. Like, for example, if
Mhm.
we had done a good job of linking our film industry with the tourism industry, the
Mhm.
government would pay a lot of attention. Because if
Mhm.
you go to France, if you go to Austria, if you go to different countries, their film commissions and their tourism boards work hand in hand. Sometimes
True.
they work in the same department. Sometimes they
Mhm.
work out of the same building, but you wouldn't know figure that a film commission would have anything to do with the tourism board, but they
Mhm.
kind of work in tandem because their industry grows on each other. Their industries kind of they lean on each other for support. So
Mhm.
I don't know if we have I don't know if we have put cinema in enough of a pedestal for the government and all that to pay. And again, look, in a utopian world, I have my own sort of views on how a government, or how the people, or how each individual person to contribute to their industry. But
Me too.
practically speaking,
Mhm.
because practically speaking, there is just one way to make cinema supported by the government, and that is to make your cinema matter. When
Mhm.
your cinema matters, governments will pay attention, big businesses will pay attention, audiences will pay attention. We need to
Mhm.
figure out why that cinema matters. We need to figure out what kind of cinema matters. We need to then do a good job convincing people that it matters. That's very important right now. Right?
Mhm.
I have to be in front of like students or parents or something like that and convince them to basically give their talented children a shot, because
Mhm.
time that those people spend with is time that they should be spending studying science and maths and studying to be a doctor or an engineer or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes on even on a case by case basis, I have to kind of tell these people that this is important. What you're doing is important. What you're doing will have legacy, right? None of
Mhm.
these other things that you're talking about has any kind of legacy unless you're some big, you found a cure, or I'm not saying that those jobs don't matter, far from it. I'm just saying
Mhm.
that the arts also matter. The arts
Mhm.
are also very, very important.
Mhm.
See, beauty is very important. Even if you talk about how can anybody think that beauty and economic development don't go hand in hand? How can anyone think that? I don't get
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
Right? When a country
Mhm.
looks beautiful, the world will flock to it. When a
Mhm.
country creates beautiful work, the world will flock to it.
Mhm.
Everyone will flock to it. Right?
True.
You have something there that's suitable enough for people to see. And then what's going to happen? They're going to come and they're going to spend money here, right?
Mhm.
If you shoot a movie in Kandy, people are going to come to basically see the beauty of Kandy, do the work of Kandy, do their work in Kandy. What's going to happen? They're going to spend their money in Candian restaurants, right?
Mhm.
They're going to spend their money buying Candian products. They are going to get an understanding of Candian culture.
Mhm.
So
True.
I think we need to get to a point, Ray, in my opinion, where we
Mhm.
can't be ignored. Then we
True.
won't need to have discussions about why someone's ignoring us. They're
Mhm.
ignoring us because we are ignorable. We must be
I agree.
unignorable,
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Good point.
We need to stand out. We
Mhm.
need to be the horse that everyone wants to back. In Sri
Mhm.
Lanka right now, cinema is seen as a dying horse. Nobody wants to back cinema as like something that
I,
can revive the economy, that can
I'm
bring people
sorry.
together.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but my personal opinion, I reckon it's dead.
Yeah, you may
I'm
be
not.
right.
I'm not saying
You
that
may be right.
bad movies aren't made. Um, I've seen very good movies come out of new filmmakers and old filmmakers. I'm not talking about those exceptional projects,
Yeah,
but in general, cinema is dead and no
yeah.
one understands how to revive it. And I reckon it's partially mine and everyone else's responsibility too. And I think you're doing a great job by doing what you have just started doing.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I would just kind of like to add a note to the statement that you made that cinema is dead, right? I think for anybody who's listening to this, I think we need to carefully draw the distinction, as you are, right, obviously, between great movies being made and the cinema industry being dead, right? Just because one or two great movies are coming out, it doesn't mean that the cinema industry is alive and well. You know, great movies can come out an industry that's dead also, right? What we would define as an industry is a collective of great movies constantly coming out, right?
True.
Movies that are critically well received, that are commercially well received, that repeatedly hold high production values, you know, whatever is available with the resources at the time. But basically, I think it's only if a country can consistently produce, say, about at least 10 movies a year, right? 10
Good
movies
movies.
a year that we can be proud of, even if only
True.
10 people watch each movie, right? But 10 movies a year that we can be proud of, okay, in many different ways, not just for the story, not just for this 10 products that are well written, well directed, well acted, well shot, well edited, well released, well promoted.
True.
We need 10 of those movies. When 10 of those movies start coming out every year, the industry will absolutely fix itself. That's what we need. I think that needs, if we need some kind of a practical goal, you know, because I'm a person who kind of, I need these markers, right? When I talk about, okay, reviving an industry, I need to find to myself what that reviving entails, you know. And in my opinion, it's this 10 movie rule that I have, you know. 10 movies every year that you can actually play at a film festival abroad. It doesn't have to win awards or anything like that. It just needs to be well received. It needs to make enough money for the people involved in that industry to not have a side job. The people who work for that industry, Ray, need to be fed by that industry. Only then is that industry alive.
That's the
If you're
problem.
keeping it alive as a hobby, and by that definition, what you said is absolutely right. By that definition, I don't think anybody would basically say that our industry is alive and thriving. I think everyone would agree that there's so much work to do. And I don't want people to think that because of this, we are discounting the people who are making movies right now.
No way,
People who
no
have
way,
made
no.
fantastic movies. You know, in the last, no, I want to qualify that, right? I want to qualify that that's not what we are saying. What we are saying is that we are letting those great filmmakers down by not having an industry to back them.
True.
When a great movie
Good way of putting
comes
it.
out, we've let them down. We've let these great filmmakers down because they've made these great movies that, if it just had a semblance of an industry, may have skyrocketed in fame around the world. But because there's no industry, these filmmakers are just kind of relegated to producing great movies in a dying industry. So I think even for their sake, not just for the young people's sake, even for their sake, so that our veterans, our experts can be honored the way they should be. You know, if there's no industry, if there's no cinema, then all these guys who are doing great movies right now are never going to be honored. When they pass on, it's just going to be for a lost cause. We need to build an industry so that they can also see the fruits that their labor has created, so that we all together, the next generation, is also able to grace the older generation with the celebration and with the academic analysis and study that they deserve. And for that also, we need an industry.
True. If we work according to this is it's a hypothetical question, right? Like, if everything works out well, nothing works out well in the world, but let's just assume that if things functioned and moved forward properly in the local industry, how many years do you reckon it would take for us from our current standards to reach that level of standard we had a chat about, maybe producing 10 movies that the world would talk about? How long do you think it'll take?
Yeah. I think much shorter than most people would think. I think even within a couple of years. See, since we're talking about a utopian scenario, right? So let's just say there's some kind of show, okay, that's produced in Sri Lanka, that has all the Sri Lankan flavor that we're talking about, okay, that gets picked up by Netflix. Let's just say one show that gets picked up by Netflix. Okay, and it becomes something of a phenomenon in Netflix, the way these now Nordic shows and Swedish shows and all these shows are becoming kind of the cult favorites. right?
Mhm.
We all, for one thing we have in our favor, Ray, is that we have Indian neighbors from where equipment and expertise and everything can come down. Like right now, there's just no
True.
need to. Right
Mhm.
now, there's just no need. The resources are all right in the next country, right?
Mhm.
VFX labs, everything. We can go there, we can bring them here. Right now, we just don't have a vessel. So all
Mhm.
it takes is that one right project. All
Mhm.
it takes is one right project. And, I can personally talk to people in those industries and come down here if there's enough of something here to sell them.
Mhm.
I mean, recently there was this, I think a couple of years ago, there was an Indian movie that came out called Andhadhun, right?
Mhm.
Which won awards national. It was really well received, and it's a great movie. So the producers of that movie, the production company that actually dealt with that movie, they saw one of my vlogs and they got in touch with me because I had known the one of the ladies who runs it, Sarita. She's a good friend of mine because
Mhm.
we've collaborated together before, and so they were very interested in what we did. They were very
Mhm.
interested in kind of seeing if there's any kind of way in which they could help. They were very interested in seeing whether we could identify talented people. Of course, I also have to maintain the integrity of not just sending them anyone, right?
Mhm.
If I could kind of identify talented youngsters and they could go work on an Indian movie set, right?
Mhm.
They could see how that's made. They could get to contribute creatively to it. They can do things like that.
Mhm.
And then that guy is going to come back knowing how to work that equipment, knowing all those techniques, knowing how that entire structure works.
Mhm.
So I think it'll actually take much. I think it'll actually take a shorter time than we might imagine. It all
Mhm.
depends on finding those right projects that click,
Mhm.
finding those right projects that give us some kind of an into the global world.
Mhm.
Once they start watching Sri Lankan shows or Sri Lankan movies in Mexico and in Turkey and in Russia and in
Mhm.
Australia, right? Then nobody can stop. Nobody can stop us.
True.
In fact, economically, we're in an even better position than India, right?
Mhm.
Because $10,000 can get you way more in a production here than it can get you even in India. One
Mhm.
of the reasons that a lot of these big Hollywood companies, especially VFX companies, one of the reasons they outsource their work to India is because the work is really good, and B,
Mhm.
the work is not that expensive compared
Mhm.
to VFX artists from anywhere else,
Anywhere else in
right?
the world, yeah.
What if we get a little bit of that
A
work over
fracture
here?
of that, huh?
What if we set up a VFX lab here? Sorry?
A fracture of what the Indians get, right?
Exactly. Now let's say Pixar, they have to hire a VFX team and they give that VFX team 500,000,
Mhm.
right? And then all of a sudden they find out that in India somebody can do it just as well for 250,000.
Mhm.
Right? So they all move to India. Look at some of these Marvel movies and all that. If you stay through the credits, and that's one
Yes,
of the
I've
reasons why
noticed
they
it.
have sort of post-credit scene. You will see a lot of Indian names.
Mhm.
Go look at Black Panther and look at the cast, and
True.
especially VFX. When it comes to lighting and when it comes to modeling and texture, you'll see lots of Indian names. Right?
True.
You'll see lots of Indian names. So what if we can go to them and say, hey, guess what? We can do the same thing for 100,000,
Mhm.
right? At the same quality, right?
Mhm.
$100,000 is a lot of money here, my friend,
Mhm.
right? Especially for some of these guys who are from, from the remote villages, guys and girls who are still living at home. They're farming, they may be stitching, they're kind
Mhm.
of cooking, and they're selling hardware. I mean, to them, can you imagine how much money something like that would be?
Yeah, that's
That
180.
would just be industry.
Mhm.
Yeah, but for that we need to get them. But for that we need to get them to that level, right? In
Mhm.
India, there was a concentrated effort that went into training the next generation of Indian youngsters, and that
Okay.
happened because they had a huge population and certain studios and certain forces. They had
Mhm.
the foresight to know that if we increase the graphic design and the VFX potential of India, that's a gold
Mhm.
mine for us. For cheap labor and for good quality labor,
Mhm.
right? We don't have those advantages. We really don't have those advantages. We'll
True.
have to be even better to get that business,
Mhm.
right? So until we get to that spot, we have no right to clamor for that spot.
Mhm. Yep.
We need to find our own advantages. We need to. One of the things that I'm working on, teaching some of these youngsters now is 2D animation that can be done on the phone that I was talking to you about earlier. There are amazing softwares right now, mostly used for learning animation and just like for little snippets, 10-second animations, 20-second animations, 1-minute animations, where
Right.
you can even draw on your phone screen, right? You can draw on your phone screen and there's a timeline and you can animate it. Now, to these guys, it was mind blowing. Like I just sat with a few of them and I did an animation on my phone and they did it with me of just a ball bouncing, right? And they realized that the work that went into the ball bouncing, it's not just a case of making it move, right? You have to make it flow. When it hits when it impacts the ground, it has to kind of squeeze. Then it has to extend. You have to maintain motion. So that's like a new world for them.
For them, okay.
And now they're sending me their own doodles. They're sending me little clips that they did, and you can see that they're getting better. Now, are we ever going to create Wall-E with that? No, right? But this is what is this thinking that's first required for this guy to one day be at a point, for this girl to one day be at a point where they can work on a Wall-E, where they can create a Toy Story or a Frozen on their own. It's this way that I can educate them on those basic principles of animation, easing, spacing, motion, kind of the, how to give something inner life. Because animation is all about like creating life, right? That's the literal meaning of animation, is to kind of give life to something. So, but they normally they think it's something for kids, because as far as they're concerned, it's something that their culture tells them cartoons are something that only kids enjoy, right? I have to now tell them about thriving animation industry, not just in Hollywood, not just in Japan, but everywhere, in places like India. Like at a time, countries are now have already defined their own styles of animation. We are still struggling to even convince some of our youngsters that animation is something that is not just for kids.
How many animation
so there's so much work that needs to be done on that front.
We've only produced one animated feature film in Sri Lankan history, right? That's all we've done.
I would reckon so. I don't have the facts with me, but I know that there aren't many, and I mean I certainly haven't seen them. Right. I right now we're working on a little short film with some of my students in the north. They were filming a short film there in a school.
Okay.
So what I did was, while they were shooting another scene inside the classroom, I got together with like 8-9 children, and I made this video of them and collaborated on a story with them. Right, it's about an alien invasion, and all of them kind of fight the alien, and it's like, I guess they must have seen snippets of Avengers or something like that, and they want to. So so now we are working on like it's a 2D sort of hand-drawn, very crude animation, right? But it's sort of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where real life people interact with animated characters.
Okay, so it's composited. Okay,
so it's an experiment. It's an experiment. It's something we made for fun. It's like very, very draining, because I have to do the animation myself on my phone, right? But I got the story from the kids.
Animating on the phone, those apps, are they like keyframe animation, something like Flash back in the day?
Yeah, they're keyframe animations. Is basically, you have to draw every frame when you're integrating it into a video. You can't just take a layer and sort of transpose it on that. You have to draw literally on the video. So if I'm punching a monster, now every frame I have to basically draw the monster getting closer and the impact as I punch it. So it's very draining to do, but it's something that I want to prove that something like this can be done on the phone. See, I also believe that you should learn how to work the high-end equipment and all that, but you should also be able to function without it, right? Because that's where the great artist is. Right? An actor can't come to you and say, you know what, man, I can emote very well, but I can't speak well. Right? Or I can speak really well, but I don't have, like, my body is not dramatically expressive. You can't say that. If you're an actor, you need to have all those skills. If you're a filmmaker, you need to have all those skills. If you're a filmmaker, if I give you a phone, you should go and come out with something. Okay? Something that showcases your talent. And at the same time, if I give you a red or a drone or something like that, you should have your own way of approaching that. So many of the students, sometimes they and most of these kind of students, fortunately we don't encounter them often, but we have. right? Where they are kind of waiting around for somebody to come and basically drag them into this and convince them that it needs to be done. Most of them are waiting to be taught this, right? Like, for I was telling you about the bonsai guys earlier, right? They didn't let anything, they didn't wait for anybody to come and like teach them how to plant a bonsai tree. They went on YouTube. One of the a lot of them aren't fluent in English, like anywhere. Many of my students, right, who come from these interior places, because of that, a large part of the internet itself is cut off for them, right? There's so much that they could otherwise learn from the internet, right, that they can't because of a language. There are so many great movies they know of, but they can't watch because of the language barrier. So I'm trying to now create some kind of an initiative, but I have to I have to get different funding for it. I have to put a plan towards it, but to essentially to get Sinhala and Tamil subtitles for the IMDb top 50 250 movies. Right? Many of them haven't even seen like the great classics of cinema. They haven't seen Rear Window. They haven't seen Persona. They haven't seen Seven Samurai. They haven't seen Scarface. They haven't seen any of these movies because regional language subtitles don't exist. And even those of them who are somewhat fluent English can't read subtitles that quickly. Subtitles also go by really fast. So they're not really fluent in that. And I have many suggestions, like, people tell me, oh, cinema is a visual medium, so just let them watch it without subtitles. But I'm very reticent about that, because then you're not giving that student the full impact of the movie, right? You're not, there's only so much you can glean from something visually. Seven Samurai is great visually. I'm sure people could understand it visually, but would it be as great just visually? No. You need plot. You need character development. It's just dialogue is a way that we express that in movies. Not in all movies, but in many movies. So to say that cinema is a visual medium, so why don't they watch it without the subtitles? That's like asking them to listen to like a great song with certain tracks pulled out, with the lyrics pulled out or the drums pulled out, or so. That makes no sense to me. True. So instead of that, I want to get subtitles in regional cinema. Again, it's an expensive process, just finding people, getting the proper coding and all that. So it's just an idea in my head right now. I still haven't, there are some movies personally kind of trying to translate. Fortunately, English subtitles exist already. So you just need to translate them to the correct time code. But when you're it's a proper project. It has to be translated properly. Sometimes a literal translation can pull someone out of a movie. So it has to be a translation that conveys the spirit of what's being said also. Sometimes being too literal just makes no sense, so it has to be done by someone who knows the language and who knows the movie. So that's, I'm just putting that out there. If there's anyone out there who'd kind of like to collaborate with us on something like this also, would be good.
This is a shout out.
That's something we're always looking for.
What I was going to ask you is, like, what kind of support do you expect from other fellow filmmakers like us, our mutual friends, and like, what can we do to support your...
There will be a lot right down the line. Right now, the greatest support that we could get, the greatest support that our filmmakers could get is just attention, right? Right now, they haven't even, I'm still them to a stage where they believe that people will care if they make something. They've been told for too long that make something, or this big guy, whatever, he could come from India, he thinks he's some big shot who's kind of helping you guys. You're going to make a movie, you're going to put it out there, and nobody's going to watch it. They have people in their heads. See, because when you work with grassroots communities, you understand that just as enthusiastic as the youngsters are, there are also groups of people who are very, very enthusiastic about not letting these youngsters do what they want. Right? We are and you can't blame some of these communities. It's just that the stuff we've gone through is like that. Generally, as a population, we can be very defeatist when we want to try new things. We can be very negative in our opinion when young people want to do new things. And sometimes just paying attention to them, will make a huge difference to them. So from my fellow filmmakers, fellow artists, what I just like to ask is, first, if you're interested, maybe you could just pay some attention to the work that they're doing. They get when I showed most of them Sunday Times article and all that, like, they got a huge kick out of it, right? True. I don't even mention any of them by name or something like that. But just the fact that the institute is mentioned, just the fact that I mentioned that Oh, by the way, the institute also works in Hatton. The institute also works in Ampara. So the students there are kind of very excited, because they get the feeling that they're part of a pan Sri Lankan thing, and that's something that I'm trying to create as well. We're trying to bring fragmented communities together, and for that, it's very important that makers from all communities, only if they're interested, right? I'm really not interested in. I don't want to impose the institute on anyone. I don't want anyone to think that, yeah, as a filmmaker or as an artist, you are not obligated to follow us. You are not obligated to follow me. It's our job to make you interested in what we are doing. Hopefully, for those of you who are interested by this conversation that I've had in Ray, if that interest leads you to support us, you could kind of follow our Facebook page. You could subscribe to our YouTube channel, where a lot more will happen. And if we pay attention, and if enough people pay attention, the artists and the filmmakers will tell us how we can help them. So nobody needs to help us. We're asking for the filmmakers, and right now that's attention. And then later, maybe, when we start putting up the building, when we want like a facility, or maybe we want to fund a movie made by a few students, maybe for things like that, then we can start at crowdfunding. We can start doing things like that, because that would then be a way of everyone feeling like they're a part of it. If we get 10,000 people together and they all contribute 10,000 rupees, that's a lot of money, right? Or if you get 100,000 people together and they all contribute 1,000 rupees, that's a lot of money.
Yep.
Right. So it's in those kind of ways. I don't want anybody to think that now they have to be like this patron of what we're doing, but just the filmmakers and the artists knowing that if they do something, it's going to be in front of other people. That other people who are going to take time off their busy schedules, even for a moment, to look at the picture of a tree that somebody's made, right? Or to just kind of look at a video that we are putting out. One of the reasons that I'm trying to put out the vlog more often is also I want the vlog, VF also has to be a mouthpiece for a lot of our policies and our thoughts, right? Because I think people need to understand why they probably need to support us, right? Now, if I think just from this podcast alone, now the people who feel that the local industry should be supported no matter what, right, probably will not enjoy the conversation that we had, that we have the first obligation to give value to cinema, right? But for those of you who feel the same way, I just want you to know that the work has already started to make that happen, right? So just you watch us till you decide that we are the horse to bet on. Because right now, even I don't know if I'm the horse to bet on, right? Right now, I'm running as possible. The institute is running as fast as possible. Our students from all over the country are running as fast as possible. Just watch us run. Watch us run. See how fast we run, and then you can place your bets on us.
All right. But whatever you're doing is amazing. I reckon it's amazing.
Thank you.
I was first introduced.
And I mean, I'd like to thank you as well, right, for the amazing work that you're doing, and for the. I think this could be that common platform that we need. This could be the common platform where that exchange of ideas happens. Because we need something like this where people like me. I mean, some people may find my ramblings pretty boring, but some people may find it pretty interesting, just as a different point of view into where we are trying to take the industry, right? And I think the long form podcast is also something that the art industry and the film industry needs to embrace. It gives us more time to talk. It's given me a lot of clarity about what I think when I get to jam with you.
All right, that's great.
So I would like to thank you for that. Also, I'd like to thank our mutual friend Rasanga for putting us together. So shout out to Rasanga.
I started the podcast with him. He was my first guest.
Right. So he's doing some amazing work.
Amazing things.
There are some there are some local artists that have really started coming into their own. So I think this could be that place for us to congregate. This could be, because we need a gatekeeper, right? We need somebody, say, who has perspective on different types of industries, on different types of cultures, but is also very aware of what is possible and not possible in Sri Lanka. I think this forum could very much be the place where, if I want to know what Rasanga's philosophy on filmmaking is, I would immediately see whether he has a podcast with you, right? Or he
Yep.
has to, if he
Okay.
wants to know what, I think I would like to thank you for that, for giving us that some kind of central place, because we need a place to toot our own horns, even if that's not socially acceptable or whatever it is. Like, I need to toot the horns of my students, right? Even if not
I
my own
understand.
horn, I need a place to toot their horns, and I can't just do it from my platform, because from
Hmm.
my platform it would have no legitimacy if I'm just tooting the horns of my own students. So
True.
I would really hope to, even as a way of supporting us, since you asked us what was the way in which young filmmakers or artists or anyone really could support us. I think also supporting platforms like this would be in a way supporting us, because what we are trying to create is the industry. I don't want we have to be the industry. The institute's name is VF. I don't want we have to be the industry. I don't want we have to just turn into some kind of a production company where we are now kind of giving money and producing arts and all those things. I wanted we have to spark some kind of a resurgence. I wanted we have to kind of, and it's not possible without people like you, Ray, right? It's not possible without people to talk about this with. It's not possible without people, without a common. And we were talking about Joe Rogan earlier. I mean, to think of the number of artists or celebrities, whether it was MMA or stand-up comedy or whatever it is, how many people gained exposure through that podcast, right? How many
True.
people who are already famous basically got taken to the next level, because in a long form podcast I can sort of bare my soul, right? In
True.
a vlog I'll always have to edit it out to a short form. I can't really tell you certain things. You said certain things that I wanted to say, but I would never say. It would be inappropriate for me to say,
Hmm.
right? But you, especially in our discussions about the industry and all that,
Hmm.
because I'm still an outsider to the industry in terms of working here.
Hmm.
So there are certain, I'm very lenient when it comes to my analysis of any film industry that's not the Indian film industry, because I feel like I don't have a right to analyze those kind of, even though I very much see myself as a Sri Lankan, and I very much see myself as somebody who now wants to contribute to Sri Lankans. I don't think it's my position to judge them.
All right. I
So
understand.
having a conversation with somebody like you is very easy, because I can say whatever I want to say, and whatever I leave unsaid, you seem to have the same views. So that's been pretty cool.
Awesome. So, besides your Film and Arts Institute project, what else are you working on? Are you working on projects as a filmmaker?
I am, but a lot of that I'm now channeling through the institute, right? Because I am in talks with a few production companies for feature films, maybe an anthology, about local stories that are told maybe by different filmmakers from different points of view, parallel narratives, that kind of thing, right?
All right.
And there will be projects in which I involve my students, right? So
Okay.
one of the reasons I don't announce that projects before they are confirmed is because I don't want to give a lot of my students, false hope, because they know that if I do something, they are going to come work in it. They're all going to work together on it. So
Hmm.
there are feature films in the cards, right?
Hmm.
I am talking to some other big companies as well. I won't be able to talk about it for quite a while, until kind of COVID restrict, until we have a proper measure of what we can and can't do. So I can't
Hmm.
promise too many things. The
Hmm.
Film and Arts Festival is something that we're working on quite fervently right now. We're
All right.
trying to gather together different art pieces and different short films from Sri Lankan filmmakers, and we're also talking to some filmmakers from abroad, and maybe
All
we
right.
can feature some of their work at the festival. On
Brilliant.
a personal level, I love comic books, right? So I draw children's books. I actually have children's books
Wow.
on Amazon and stuff, which I sometimes say.
You
Yeah,
should
I'm
mention
I'm
all
I'm a
your
I'm a big.
links, like all your internet sources, so I can have them below the video, and also
Sure,
post them
sure,
on my
sure.
social media platforms.
Sure. That would be great. That would be great. So I've published 3 children's books on Amazon so far.
Hmm.
Right? They're mostly just kind of they're wordless comic books. They're like the sci-fi adventures of a monster hunter, right?
All right.
So it's an extension of like a story that I would sometimes kind of tell myself or play with my toys when I was a kid. That
Okay.
now that I realized, okay, I'm never going to be old enough to learn how to draw well, but I
Hmm.
can draw. People can say that I couldn't draw, but they can't say that I didn't draw. right?
Oh,
So
okay.
it's
Nice.
essentially
All right.
essentially the adventures of this round blob, and I made
All
him
right.
round because then I had to kind of draw him over and over again,
I
because
feel you.
I'm horrible at anatomy. So it was a storytelling exercise. I used a lot of that actually to teach these guys, to teach my students how to make storyboards, because comic book basically storyboards, right? I think also
Yes.
getting a lot of them more involved in comic books and manga and those kind of things would also give them a better idea on how to think visually about movement, because a lot of them, they think about stories, they think about acting, they don't really think about movement. And that's a part that I'm pushing them down. And
All
I
right.
think I think one of the reasons I think about movement so much is because I grew up reading lots of movement based comics, so I think visually in movement, right? I grew
All
up
right.
watching kind of Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry and all those things, which are all movement based. I'm a child of kind of the Chuck Jones animations, so those all have character expressions, movements, those kind of things. So I'm also exposing these guys, trying to expose these girls and guys to those kind of to them it's new media, right? Even though it was made in the 40s and 50s and 60s, to them it's completely new. To them it's present a new visual structure. So I treat it very much. I treat that very much as new media. I mean, look, and making these comic books is quite entertaining. Who knows? Maybe we'll have great comic books that come out of here.
We
I
can
do
have a
know
great
that
comic book industry. We can.
we can. Look, we have a lot. We have so much talent. I do know that there are a few teams that are working on kind of Sri Lankan graphic novels. Sometimes I've seen like works in progress of these guys. They do it with like the devil masks, and they're working on a new type of I'm completely forgetting what the graphic novel is called. So if those guys ever see this, they must me. But there are these Facebook groups where you can kind of see. So there's so much. I have a friend. His name is Randy, right? Randy Chris Pereira, and he's an amazing illustrator, an amazing animator, and guys like him really give me hope. They really give me hope, because see, if a comic book industry thrives, that also now gives you kind of a new outlet into another industry, right? If we create a great comic book, then we can also then turn that comic book into a great animated series. Right? That's almost all of the Japanese comic book industry, apart from the magazine sales, most of their profits come from the anime, where if your manga is good enough, it gets turned into an anime, and all of a sudden this manga that may have been reasonably obscure for a niche audience just takes off. And then that leads to merchandising, that leads to kind of roller coaster rides, that leads to t-shirts, that leads to an industry. So we are also pursuing that avenue. I'm trying to lay as many seeds as possible to see what grows into the tree the fastest.
And I hope that everything works out as best as possible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'm honestly telling you, I was so blown away when Russ showed me some of your links. It was like, wow, someone's actually caring for other people. Finally, So it's amazing, man.
Because a lot of people, this, Ray, a lot of people, mostly they just tell us that it can't be done, right? I am still in many cases, I am still seen as a sort of a very naive young person who's come from another industry. They probably think, when they see me, they probably think that I was, born with a silver spoon in some industry, and I've just come here with all my privilege, and I'm exerting it on them. Truth is far from it, right? I know what it's like to be somebody with no money wanting to make a movie. And so many people, and even when we talk to them about uniting communities through art and all that, eyebrows are raised. People tell us that it's never going to happen behind closed doors, of course, right? Outside, externally, they're all very supportive of this, but then internally there's this whole it's not going to work. There's this very negative thing, but I'm what's his name, the American president, Teddy Roosevelt, right? So he has this famous quote that I'm paraphrasing about how, the world does not belong to the people who kind of, mock and analyze other people. The world belongs to those of us who are kind of in the field. We are the ones kind of climbing the cliff. A person watching it on television may be looking at us and saying, that's not possible. He's going to fall. Look at that fool wasting his time to climb the cliff. And maybe we will fall, right? And maybe we will, but at least we'll know the euphoria of falling from that great distance.
Mhm.
right? Of what role model says is, the other people will never understand the heights that you want to reach.
Mhm.
The heights that you want, in my case, the heights that I want the students to reach. Because
Mhm.
I could care less whether I win an Oscar or a Grammy or a Sundance Award or whatever it is. I really couldn't care less. I'm very, very happy with what I'm doing. But just that carrot dangling before them is a very powerful tool to them. So,
Mhm.
like I said, let's all kind of pay attention to them. If whoever's watching this could support us on just Facebook and YouTube and those kind of things, it will be huge encouragement to them. And then maybe the next time I'd be over in Kandy on your mountain and we can do the
I would
podcast
like
live.
you to. Yes, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I can actually come to you with the success stories of all
True.
the kids that we've spoken about today. That
So
would be a good
this
way of documenting our journey here also.
this is an introduction episode about you, right?
Hopefully it's
Yes,
been a good introduction.
it is a good introduction. I got to learn a lot about what
Thank
you
you.
do, and I think
Thank you. Thank you.
it's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank you. I believe so myself, and I'm just looking forward to seeing where it goes. So it's very exciting for me. I just think it'll be exciting for all of us to hop in on this. So don't let me kind of hog all the excitement for myself, right? Other
Yep,
people can also kind of join the bandwagon whenever they want.
true. I'm wishing you all the best with what you're doing, and I wish all your
Thank you, man.
students. I hope to see some amazing stuff in the near future. I wish them all best of luck and a bright future. And I really appreciate sharing your time with me for this episode. And I think the whole world gets to hear a unique story about what's happening in Sri
Thank you so
Lanka.
much. Thank you. Yeah, and on behalf of the students, thank you. I'm sure I would like to thank your viewers as well, your audience as well. It's been great, and I will see you next time with more success stories.
Yes, in Candy.
Yeah. I mean, next time we
Next
leave
time, yes.
we leave the best parts for the next.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.